oldest sister. She's the hippie of the family. She's lived the most adventurous life. And she a Pisces. She would talk to ghosts when she was little. Ghosts would always come up to her and she'd just talk to them in public, and my parents would be embarrassed. They didn't know what was going on. This is in the 60s. Then she said when she started going to school, this little red boy that only she could see started following her. And this little red boy is like a little demon boy. He would do things like pull people's hair or break things and all this other thing. And she said she would get blamed for it. And when she was telling me this, she told me long, long ago when I was a teenager, but then she was telling me last year, and I was like, does she have some kind of psychosis, you know? But there's a fine line between mysticism and psychosis. If you have not experienced it yet, you decide and you judge it, then you're living through the hubris of all that you can believe, essentially. So I believe her. She said a lot of interesting things. Anyways, this red boy would follow her everywhere, kick her, push her down, trip other people, do all this other stuff. It was like feeding through her awareness. And she was going through a lot of hard times, and my dad could see it too, she said. And so one night he just held her on his lap, and she said they prayed the demon away. They prayed the little boy away. He just sat with her, rocking her, and then they were praying for this little red boy to leave. I don't know what they were saying, but it worked. And my dad is like a 0 degree Virgo Mercury, 16 degree Leo Sun, 25 degree Scorpio Moon. And he had very deep insights, but he didn't speak much unless he was drunk. And when he was drunk, he only liked to talk about good things. But his mom had these abilities too. She was Scandinavian. And she told my sister one time, you should never intrude in people's energy. Because my little sister was reading people and she could see it. So it was like a curse. My dad thought it was a curse. And then I remember when I was little, we went out to eat. And I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if Dick and Sally came? That was my mom and dad's friends. A minute later, they walk by, and my mom and dad see them, and then they come join us for dinner. And I remember my dad looked at me, and he had this concerned look on his face. I remember I could feel his emotions. It was like he was scared for me. But I'm to here now, so I wasn't cursed by what he and my sister were cursed with. Or blessed with. It's only a curse until you figure out what it is and you turn it into a blessing. And I feel it probably takes a lifetime, especially in this 3D world, you know. where we've got all the mundane and all the expectations, consensus reality to swim through. Doesn't really have a voice for all those weird things within us. But my eldest sister, she said ever since she was little, aliens would be coming. And they would take her on their spaceship, she said. And she said the mantis was always trying to get her to look in its eyes, and she never would, she said, because if you looked into the eyes of the mantis, you fell in. And then my other sister, who's a super Scorpio, she said she did look into the eyes and she fell in. When I talked to her about it. And that was the one she was saying I was abducted all the time when I was little. She said one time she heard a noise, she opened the door. It was 4 of us in a room. And she lived in this, slept in this little closet thing. We could fit a bed in there. I used to sleep in there as I got older. And she heard the noise and she looked, and there was this gray alien, she said. And I turned and looked at her when she yelled at it. Then it started to float towards her and she slammed the door shut. She put the blanket over her head. Then she realized she could lose her little brother, so she flipped on the lights and opened the door, and it was a blanket standing straight up. And then it just dropped next to me, and then she grabbed me and brought me in her room. But she said that I had been abducted many times. I don't remember any of that. But I know I've had this strange thing on my arm ever since I was little. In my arm, actually. They don't know what it is. But every once in a while it would flare up and start itching, and I'd scratch and it would look like a keloid scar. And I just kind of joked that it was an alien tracker. And then as I got older, we went to the doctor to have them look at it, and they x-rayed it, and they said it's not, they didn't know what it was, but it's underneath the muscle, so it would just be too hard to remove. It's better just to leave it. Because all it does, it would just flare up a couple times a year and itch. Then as I got older, it would itch maybe once every few years, and maybe last time it itched was last year, but not for very long. So it's kind of weird, we grow up in these strange dynamics. The one thing I've been able to understand is that everyone that's had these alien abduction encounters has also been molested as children. It's kind of a weird coincidence. So I don't know if it's the shock of those experiences does something to your energies, or if your energies were already set and you natured the nurture, you attracted the demons somehow. Because I remember as a child I would attract the demons out of people. That's why I run people's Plutos through me. I always pull the evil out of people when I was little. I didn't understand why. I thought I was evil or something. But that's what happens to us in life. We wear our experiences until we realize we aren't them. And we rebel against everything because we don't have the language for to transmute that experience until we digest enough shit to go through and understand what it was. then we realize that the curse was a blessing and we move on. I don't know, aliens to me seem like interdimensional beings. And you, the individual, you're the gateway. That's why only some people see him. I've never seen him, at least in my conscious awareness. But I do, sometimes when I see people, I can see their shadows. It comes through in their facial expressions or the energy they give off. And they can tell that I'm reading them, and they get all clammy. One time I was at the grocery store, I just walked in and I could see this guy off in the distance walking psychotically towards me. And I could see in his eyes he was imagining him killing me. And then as I stared into his eyes, he realized I was staring him down. Then his facial expression changed and he became timid and he just snaked off. But he was possessed. I don't know if he was on drugs or what. But those kind of things, I always pull that stuff out of people somehow. Not always, but often. A few times a year. That's why I don't, if I make eye contact with homeless people, I pull the repression out of them a lot of times. It's strange. I allow people a place to ground their shadow. So I've had to learn through opposition in life. And then I had to learn that I am not the experience, that I'm able to respond rather than react, and that's part of what I transmute in life. So I feel like my sisters and brothers are all transmuting different elements of the ancestral line, which is an advancing of psyche, the ineffable, and we all have these things. We don't have the words, and there's no medium for the art. In this world, a lot of times you got to figure out what it is. You got to put the tension to form somehow, or it puts you to form. That's what I've come to understand. Civil War from GNR. Alright, Alright, that was just some weird rambling about crazy stuff.